Today's video is brought to you by Squarespace. Stay tuned until the end for a special offer. Hello everyone. I have a somewhat different video for you today. For this drawing time lapse, I'm kind of trying out a new experiment where I first create a drawing using a reference photo and then immediately make a second drawing without any reference photos. In a way, I'm trying to see if I can recreate the first drawing using only my memory. So this should be interesting. Let's start with supplies. I'm using my two Muji mechanical pencils in sizes 0.3 and 0.5 millimeters with HB lead in the 0.3 and B lead in the 0.5. I'm using 3 different types of erasers. 2 of them are retractable in 2 different sizes, and one of them is a normal eraser from Muji. And of course, my trusty blending stick, which I cannot live without. And finally, I'm using my old moleskin sketchbook, decorated with my own stickers. I've listed all the supplies in the video description if you want to pick up any for yourself. Okay, let's begin with the first drawing, which used this reference photo as a guideline. It's a royalty-free image from unsplash.com, and the photographer's handle is Armed Shutter. I'll link his page in the video description as well. I tried my best to follow the reference photo and to make a more realistic face rather than my usual aesthetic of stylizing my faces to be in fantasy doll-like proportions. However, I learned from this exercise that I probably struggle with depicting photorealism more so than I thought. It's almost like I have this muscle memory that makes me naturally inclined to go down the route of my usual fantasy facial proportions. But I still think that having a reference photo to work off of has at least helped me ease off a bit on the wide-eyed, large forehead alien look, and at least get my subject looking somewhat like a plausible human being, I hope. Also, this exercise doesn't signify me departing from my normal stylized aesthetic. I mean, it's not like I'm gonna completely change my style moving forward and only paint photorealism from now on or anything like that. But I just wanted to at least try to follow a photo reference as faithfully as I could for the sake of this experiment, just to see if I'm able to at least get close to photorealism. But what I realized in this first drawing is that even if I have a photo reference right in front of me, and even if I have the intention of following that reference super closely, a little bit of my signature style still manages to kind of sneak its way in. And it makes me wonder if every portrait I create is going to end up being happy-fied somehow. So yeah, I think I don't mind it. I definitely don't hate my style. And like I said, it's not my intention to completely start going down the path of photorealism. But it was just, I guess, interesting to me to see that even when I tried to create photorealism, it still ended up looking so much like my usual fantasy proportions. I guess that's why they call it muscle memory. It's almost something that I can't physically control with my brain. It's like embedded into my hands. And yeah, I don't really know what to think of that, but I'm fairly happy with how the portrait turned out. I don't think that my drawing has a lot of resemblance or likeness to the girl in the reference photo, but overall, I feel like she at least doesn't look off, and the proportions aren't obviously fake or obviously cartoonized in some way. At least she relatively resembles a real human being, or it's plausible that this portrait could be of a real human being, even though I feel like the features definitely still don't look photorealistic. Okay, moving on to the next drawing, which I created right after I finished the first drawing. I removed the reference, turned the page, and just immediately started on this one, trying to recreate the entire portrait purely from memory. And I feel like by doing this, I can not only test out the limits of my visual library, but also discover the areas that could use some more practice and improvement. The parts of the anatomy that are more difficult for me to draw without reference tells me that I'm probably used to relying on reference to render them properly. For this drawing, I had a fairly easy time drawing the eyes, eyebrows, nose, and lips, but found it challenging once I got to the neck. I also kind of struggled with the angle of this specific pose, both in the reference and reference-free drawings. Because the subject's face is turned a bit upwards, there's some slight distortion in the perspective that's outside of my usual comfort zone. I'm used to a fairly simple and straightforward pose where the camera aligns perfectly in front of the subject. So having to account for this subtly lower camera angle was not something I could just do perfectly from memory. In fact, I think even in the drawing where I used reference, it was still a bit challenging to try to shed my natural inclinations and follow the angle of the camera correctly. But overall, despite struggling in some areas where I couldn't rely solely on my visual library, I still had a lot more fun doing this drawing without any reference. I think because I didn't have to consciously match what I was drawing to what I was seeing in the reference photo, it just gave me a lot more freedom to be creative and to try to almost create a character out of nothing. And without any of the rules or restrictions or guidelines that I had to follow, I felt like I could be more adventurous in exploring how I wanted this character to be built, what I wanted her to look like, maybe what I wanted her expression or personality to be like. So even though drawing without reference, for me, it's probably not as accurate and the result maybe doesn't look as anatomically correct. The experience itself is a lot more enjoyable and went by a lot faster. Of course, a huge reason for that is because I wasn't needing to glance up at my reference and match everything. I could just focus solely on what I was drawing. So that eliminated some of the processing time right off the bat. And I wanted to clarify that it's not that I dislike using reference or that I think it's superior to be able to paint things solely from memory. That's definitely not what I'm trying to say or accomplish here. I'm more so just trying to improve my foundation skills and expand my visual library so that I can learn to render more things using just my muscle memory. That way, I can be more free to come up with concepts from my imagination, and I can be more well equipped to flesh out those concepts properly. Okay, now that I've finished the second drawing, we can start comparing the two to see the differences. I think these exercises are helpful to me because in my creative process, I rarely just follow one reference photo. I usually create a concept sketch from my imagination and then find various references to help aid me for the final painting, almost like putting together a mood board. I often have several different references for the anatomy, and I mentally stitch all of them together to fit the pose that I created in the concept sketch. I always find myself having to sort of fill in the blanks when I don't have the perfect reference photo to match my vision, and if I have to conjure up a random body part from memory, it can turn out looking wonky if I'm not well practiced in that area. That's why it's important for me to do these reference-free exercises to test out my memory and to pinpoint areas that need improvement. By practicing more with reference, I can help break free of my reliance on reference moving forward. Also, before I go, just a quick reminder that I am having my spring sale. So for 20% off everything, including originals, just enter the code SPRING at happyd-artist.com. And the sale will end March 31st. And if you're interested in learning more about how to paint and draw, I have lots of art educational content on my Patreon page, including exclusive video tutorials, step-by-step photo tutorials, live streams, podcasts, and even surprise art gift boxes. All available at patreon.com/happydartist. I'd love to have you join my Patreon family. I wanted to quickly thank Squarespace for sponsoring this video and for supporting my channel and the art community. I've actually enjoyed using Squarespace for 4 years now to build and host my online shop and website. So whether you need a domain, website, or online store, make your next move with Squarespace. Start your free trial today at squarespace.com and visit squarespace.com/happydartist for 10% off your first purchase. Also, if you want to check out more artworks, works in progress, and just random daily artist adventures, feel free to check out my Instagram, and you can follow me at the handle @HappyDArtist. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!